Cringe fan fiction. Let's get into it, Bestie. Come on in, Bestie. Welcome to Storypod, where we do the doing of story development together. Brought to you by Creative BFF. Okay, listen. I have cringy fan fiction that I wrote many a moon ago. I think I was writing this back in like either 2008 or 2012. All right. It's based on, I just started right into it. Let me tell you who I am first. Listen, my name is Ashley. Okay. I would like to be your creative BFF. If you have any story questions, please feel free to send me a message through my email, which is ash@creativebff.com, or you can go to my website and go to my contact page. I don't know why I was looking over to the side to try to remember where you can go to send me a message through my contact page, which is on my website, creativebff.com. Okay. I would love to help you with your story. But you may have second thoughts when you hear this cringy fan fiction that I wrote as I was in the throes of like accepting that I loved to write, and I, was trying to be a writer a little bit. Okay. So back to what I was saying. This fan fiction, of which I have a number of episodes, okay, little stories written, is based on the game Dragon Age Origins, the first one. Okay. And I just loved the character Alistair. And so, of course, I made fan fiction for my, my main character, the character that I created in Dragon Age, and Alistair. Okay. So that is what I'm going to be reading for you today. The first episode. Now, full disclosure, I am not a voice actress. I don't have the talent, I feel, of reading works, creative stories in a way that feels like, oh, you're listening to an audiobook and we're just slipping into the story. Because listen, I don't know. So we're going to do the best that we can. Please give me some grace. I had intended to make this like one of the first episodes that came out on my channel. So this has been a long time coming. As of recording, it is June 2025. Okay, I started this channel in November 2024. All right. I don't know what month it is, what day it is when you are watching this video, but it's been almost a year. Okay, several months that this video has just been sitting because I didn't want to like read it myself. Okay. There may or may not be AI voices. I might just give this to you raw. I had planned on like, let me put some AI voices to act the characters and all that kind of stuff, but I might just give this to you raw. Okay. Uncut. All right. No sweetening of the pot in terms of having AI voices that will read it better than I can. We're just going to cringe together. And I cannot guarantee that I won't groan in cringe as I read through this. There are turns of phrase that make me cringe, okay? Ways that I describe things that just feel so cringy to me. So listen, this is really letting you into my inner sanctum, okay? We're really best friends now. Very few people, maybe like 2, have ever seen these things. Okay. I had fully planned to make a whole series. I had like a whole storyline mapped out in my mind and a little bit on paper for these characters. I didn't finish the whole storyline, but I did write several episodes of this storyline. Okay. And maybe one day I'll flip these fan fictions into their own world. Okay. Pulling them out of the Dragon Age world and into a new world of my creation. But anyway, enough stalling, right? I apologize for any, flubbing of my words, stumbling over words and things like that. Because this is kind of like, as I mentioned, raw. This is a draft too, but there was still times where I was trying to decide between how I wanted to say something. So I'm kind of like just going to decide on the fly as I'm reading it. So please forgive me. Let's get into it. Enough stalling. Okay. I bring to you. Now listen, I have to look away from you and your beautiful face so that I can see what I'm reading. So please have grace for me. With that being said, I bring to you Arrival, Draft 2. An unseasonably cool wind pressed against Alwyn's back as she walked. It carried the earthy, fresh fragrance of pine and wet soil. It was so different than the salty ocean breezes she was accustomed to at home. No, she thought. Stay present, Alwyn. She let her mind concentrate on the feel of the wind against her skin instead of the horror she left in High Ever. Focus, she commanded herself. Trees, wind, the smell of earth, Duncan's heavy footfall, Ezekiel nuzzling your hand. She was so intent on avoiding dark thoughts that she didn't notice when Duncan, her savior and commander of the Grey Wardens, stopped walking. Alwyn bumped inelegantly into his back and nearly tripped over her Mabari hound. He steadied her as she mumbled an apology, then looked ahead of them into the distance. A great tower rose just above the tree line, severe in the harsh afternoon light, and in stark contrast against the cloudless blue sky. Ostagar, Duncan said, his countenance grim. It was built long ago by the Tevinter Imperium to protect the northern lowlands from invasion. Now, that is where the bulk of the Darkspawn horde will show itself. It reminded Alwyn of a mausoleum, certainly a fitting place to bury the last vestiges of the Alwyn Kuzland she had been. She contemplated the tower in silence as they continued up the path. It was the final gateway, a tangible representation of her new life, and every step she took brought her closer to an unknown and terrifying future. Duncan, thank you for saving me. Her gratitude was half-hearted at the least, and at most an outright lie. She wanted to rage against him for forcing her to live with such overwhelming grief, instead of allowing her to sleep peacefully beside the bodies of those she held dear. She wanted to be dead and forgotten, swimming in the warm embrace of the Maker, as Mother Malal would say, or would have said if she wasn't lying face down in a pool of her own blood. No, Alwyn's thanks was more a formality than an actual demonstration of gratitude, a way for her to honor the codes of conduct her parents had valued. Duncan smiled at her over his shoulder. It was a rueful expression in which Alwyn detected a depth of experience and sacrifice. You're welcome, though your thanks may be premature. The Warden Commander regarded Alwyn gravely, though not without empathy. The dangers you will face from this moment on are unlike anything you've ever known before. Though you have suffered unimaginable loss, you must not allow the tragedy to distract or consume you. If you do, you will not survive. Do you understand? Alwyn nodded. She understood that her life had taken a dramatic plunge into a dark world, hard and unsympathetic to her suffering, and she understood that she had to survive just long enough to destroy Arl Howe, the bastard whose power-hungry machinations had put everything she loved to ruin. As she marched numbly towards the tower, she made a silent vow. She would hide herself in the hereditary Kuzland strength like a cloak, and act in ways befitting the honor of her family. She would be a living representation of their clan motto, strength for the weak, hope for the hopeless, light in the darkness. She'd be like stone, hard, immovable, determined, stoic. Duncan, may I make a request of you? He looked at her curiously. Of course. Please, don't tell the other wardens that I'm a Kuzland. No one would know her pain. No one would see her fear. No one would come too close. She'd smile and joke, and the illusion of happiness would keep prying questions at bay. Duncan was silent for a moment. His dark, serious eyes were questioning, though he mercifully refrained from any further inquiry. As you wish. She would do her duty as the last of her line, but beyond that, everything else could go to hell. And when her obligations to the wardens and her family were complete, she would disappear. Her mind was eased somewhat by the vow. Like a child's blanket, having a course of action to follow, minor though it was, gave her a sense of security. Good, she thought. Now just concentrate on putting one foot in front of the other. Left, right, left, right. Alwyn wandered around the king's camp at Ostagar, vaguely fascinated by its bustle, grazing on her ration of bread. She was tasked with finding a Grey Warden named Alistair. She'd already passed at least 10 soldiers who fit Duncan's vague, hurried description of the man, but she had found many welcome distractions for her mind, so she took her time in seeking him out. It was a relief for her to be among so many people again, and she wasn't in a particular hurry to begin the joining, whatever it may be. In times past, Duncan's secrecy surrounding the ritual would have made her immediately wary, but she was becoming a different person. She felt a deliciously reckless, though weary, sort of courage. She supposed it was the product of having nothing to live for, thus having nothing really to fear. It was a welcome development. She grinned at the thought of her newfound daring, which caught the appreciative eye of a passing soldier. Much to her surprise and his, she smiled broadly at him, a gesture he returned with a flirtatious quirk of the brow. She glanced over her shoulder at the soldier, he was rather good-looking, and saw that he was walking backwards, watching her as he walked away. Not such a good idea, it turned out, as his inattention to his surroundings caused him to crash into a commanding officer, sending both of them tumbling into a stack of supply crates. Alwyn winced as the officer berated the soldier with more expletives than she'd ever heard in one sentence. She felt a bit guilty, though she had to admit his momentary admiration was a boost to her morale. Such interactions still surprised Alwyn. She wasn't particularly outgoing or beautiful, though she thought she had a nice, if unspectacular face, as far as faces went. She'd been a shy and rather plain child, having a more solidly built having a more solidly built frame than popular fashion deemed desirable. Her hair and eyes were a common shade of brown, and her ruddy skin had been permanently tanned from hours of playing on the sunny beaches of her home. By the age of 10, she'd come to terms with the fact that her beauty would never inspire sonnets, and instead threw her energies into creative pursuits like drawing and music. Oh, she still had the requisite fantasies of being the fawned-over beauty that had men collapsing at her feet, to be sure. But many awkward experiences at balls and having been mockingly called the Rose of High Ever behind her back by the crueler noble's sons had forced her to find value in characteristics other than her physical beauty. Alwyn stopped to watch a group of soldiers spar. She could almost hear Sir Gilmore's voice in her ear pointing out the flaws in their technique. She smiled to herself. Gilly, as she affectionately called the knight, was the reason she'd taken up the sword in the first place. Or rather, it was his flaming red hair, his sky blue eyes, and his princely features that first enticed her to the training grounds. They were introduced when he was a new squire at Castle Cousland, and she was an awkward 12-year-old. She was immediately smitten, and he became the subject of her girlish fantasies. As such, she would lurk around the training yard as he practiced, daydreaming about stolen kisses, confessions of love, and grand weddings. One day, to Alwyn's horror, her brother Fergus noticed her hiding at the edge of the yard and called her out onto the grounds. Of course, Fergus knew about her feelings and relished any opportunity to tease his younger sister. Wow. In order to save face, she claimed to be interested in learning swordplay, at which Fergus had laughed heartily. He offered her his sword and bade her show them what she had learned from the shadows. She must have looked a sight, a chubby, ungainly girl trying to swing a sword that was too heavy for her. To his credit, Gilly never put much stock in outward appearances. He'd circled her slowly, watching her attempts at replicating their moves. When she was out of breath, he smiled at her for the first time since she had known him. "Naturally, your steps are sloppy and your stance is unsteady," he'd said. "But your form and power are surprisingly good, especially for someone who has never picked up a sword." He took the sword and handed it back to Fergus with a slight bow. "I believe you have a natural aptitude for swordplay. I'd be happy to train you if you like, my lady." She nearly died when he called her my lady, and happily agreed to his proposition. The training was difficult, but a new confidence emerged as she improved. She began to enjoy the practice for reasons other than her handsome instructor. Even as her infatuation gave way to deep friendship, she kept up with her exercises and eventually became one of the best warriors at the castle, easily a match for both Fergus and Gilly. Before she could stop them, memories flashed into Alwyn's mind, unbidden. She could see their faces, Fergus and Gilmore's, laughing as the three of them ate apples after training. She remembered the swell of pride she felt when Gilly was knighted, her joy when Fergus's son Orin had been born. She choked down a dry mouthful of bread and quickly moved away from the practicing soldiers, forcing the tears back. She took deep breaths to soothe the uncomfortable ache in her chest that the memories had caused, not paying attention to where she was going. No more tears, Alwyn, she told herself. Remember your vows. When she regained control of her emotions, she realized that she was a few feet away from where two men, a mage and a warrior of some sort, were arguing. She ignored the little voice that reminded her that eavesdropping was rude and watched the exchange. She'd wandered into the middle of the conversation, so she had no idea what they were talking about, but at least it was a mildly entertaining diversion. What her reverence desires is of no concern to me. I am busy helping the Grey Wardens, by the king's orders, I might add. The mage seemed to be irritated as much by Alistair's presence as by the message he carried from the revered mother. Alistair sighed inwardly. He'd had quite enough of testy mages and testier chantry folk. Should I have asked her to write a note? Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a woman walk up to where they stood. He glanced at her quickly, and his brain extracted the three most important details of the situation. 1, she was attractive. 2, she seemed amused by him. 3, she was attractive. Tell her I will not be harassed in this manner. Alistair was slightly Girl, my words are flubbing. Alistair was slightly tickled by how flustered Sir Mage was becoming. Perhaps he could tell Alistair that Alistair had once trained to be a Templar. Mages probably had a sense about these things, though he never got around to hunting apostates and looming menacingly over circle mages. The association, once noted, was usually enough to earn the ire of many of the magic users he met. Yes, I was harassing you by delivering a message. The woman snorted at his retort, which emboldened Alistair. Your glibness does you no credit. Listen, I'm not editing any of this out. The mage had also noticed her response. Here I thought we were getting along so well. I was even going to name one of my children after you, Alistair scowled. The grumpy one. The woman chuckled to herself and took a bite of bread. Enough, the mage conceded. I will speak to the woman if I must. Get out of my way, fool. He grimaced at the woman as he passed her, to which she smiled apologetically. Now that Sir Grumpy Robes was gone, Alistair turned his full attention to the woman. When he got a good look at her, he realized that she was more than attractive. She was actually quite lovely. Her expressive eyes were a warm coffee color. Coffee sounded really good at the moment. That mage had exhausted him. Her lips were full and slightly tinged with pink. Her features were soft and delicate. Her thick, tightly curled brown hair was pulled up into a simple bun, which accentuated her easy, unaffected beauty. She smiled as he strolled over to her. And though there was secret sadness in her eyes, the expression added to her charm. You know, one good thing about the Blight is how it brings people together. He smiled in greeting. She chuckled. I know exactly what you mean. He was encouraged by the fact that she hadn't yet called him an idiot and stormed off, so he took the opportunity to try and make her laugh. It's like a party. We could all stand around in a circle and hold hands. That would give the Darkspawn something to think about. Okay, it wasn't his best line ever, but it earned him a wider smile at least. Brilliant idea, though I'm only here for the food, I'm afraid. She ate the last bit of her bread. He laughed. Pretty and witty all rolled into one. She became more interesting by the moment. Wait, we haven't met, have we? He really, really hoped they had. She grinned playfully at him. Not to my knowledge, unless you've somehow been the mosquito that's been making a meal of my arms, or the hard, rocky dirt I've been sleeping on for the past week. He laughed again. There was a very good chance she was nearly as strange as he. She looked past him into the camp. Speaking of meeting people, I should probably be going. I'm looking for someone, actually. She smiled at him. Good luck with those grumpy mages, soldier. She started to leave. Quick, Alistair, think of something. Don't let her just walk away. Wait. She looked at him expectantly. Maybe I can help you. Who are you looking for? She pondered him for a moment. Perhaps you can at that. I'm looking for a Grey Warden named Alistair. Do you know him? Alistair couldn't have been happier if he'd been bequeathed a lifetime supply of fine cheeses. But why would she be looking for him? Oh, he realized that she was probably Duncan's newest recruit. What was her name? Alicia? Eileen? Alexandra? At any rate, the day just kept getting better and better. Well, Alistair stopped short of revealing that he was the warden she was looking for. He wanted to spend a little more time with her to get to know her better. If she knew who he was, they'd have to return to Duncan to start the joining ritual, and then it might be too late. He shook his head to clear away the depressing thoughts. I don't know him exactly, he lied, but I'd be glad to help you find him. She smiled. Ah, so you're willing to join me on my little adventure, In that case, I look forward to traveling with you. He chuckled. You do? Huh, that's a switch. Lead on. As he followed her, he couldn't help but notice how pleasing her figure was. She was shapely and soft with a little extra in the rear. He felt a quick mental slap in the form of the revered mother's lecture on the dangers of such thoughts. While he didn't think that noticing her loveliness would rip open the fade and cause a desire demon to gnaw on his brain, he did know that he couldn't allow that line of thinking to go too far. After all, she may become one of his sisters in the order if she survived. Maker, he hoped she survive. So, he began as he caught up to her, will you be joining the wardens then? That is the goal, yes. You know, it just occurred to me that there have never been many women in the Grey Wardens. I wonder why that is. She looked at him questioningly. Oh, how would you know that? How would you know that? The way I read that was so weird. He hurried to correct himself. I don't really know. It just seems that way is all. I haven't seen any here, at least. She smiled slyly. You want more women in the wardens, do you? Would that be so terrible? Not that I'm some drooling lecher or anything. Please stop looking at me like that. Her laughter was the reward for his efforts, though he wouldn't describe their conversation as an effort on his part. He was surprised by how easy it was to talk to her. Alistair guided her around the camp, making sure to avoid places where he might be recognized. Their conversation was light and humorous, and he was disappointed when the fading daylight reminded him that they would have to return to Duncan at some point. There was a joining to perform and a blight to end, after all. So then the quartermaster, who was blind drunk by that time, happily slapped the woman's behind. Little did he know the woman was the very stern, highly unamused, extremely furious, revered mother. Needless to say, he hasn't touched the holy wine since. Alwyn doubled over with laughter as her nameless guide finished his story. When she finally caught her breath, she glanced at his face. He had approachable good looks, coppery blonde hair, inviting hazel eyes, and a kind, goofy smile that instantly put her at ease. She felt a squeeze of disappointment when she saw Duncan in the distance, standing near a bonfire with the other recruits. Well, there's Warden Commander Duncan. I suppose I should go tell him I failed in my mission to find the elusive Alistair. She turned to her guide and smiled, offering him her hand. As he shook it, she said, Thank you for aiding me in my epic, though unsuccessful quest. It was the most fun I've had in a long while. The man smiled at her. I think I'm the one who should be thanking you. I haven't had that much freedom to talk and be silly in, well, ever. You must have a high tolerance for idiocy. Alwyn laughed at his self-deprecating humor. I've never met an idiot I didn't like. She winked at him, not winced. She winked at him. Though I wouldn't consider you an idiot. Aw, does that mean you don't like me? She couldn't help but notice how adorable his playful pout was. Was he flirting with her? The possibility that he was nearly made her blush. Girl, I'm losing it. Remember your vow, Alwyn, she admonished herself. Don't let anyone too close. A quiet voice cut in. But a little flirting with an anonymous soldier couldn't hurt, right? Right. She smiled at him. I wouldn't go that far. She started towards the bonfire, but I really must be going. He followed after her. Aha, so you do like me then. She laughed. I wouldn't go that far either. She heard him chuckle behind her. Boo! Hiss! Now I'm beginning to reconsider my previous assertion that having more women in the wardens would be a good thing. Alwyn threw her head back in laughter. Then it's good you're not a Grey Warden, right? She wanted to ask his name, but decided against it. It was a shame she'd probably never see him again after her joining. Their tour of the camp had lightened her mood considerably, and his company helped her forget her pain. Well, actually... Duncan turned to face them. Ah, Alwyn, I see you found Alistair. She whirled around to see her guide, Alistair, grinning sheepishly. She raised an eyebrow and returned his grin. It seems I have. Good, replied Duncan. I'll assume you're ready to begin the preparations. He looked at Alistair, assuming, of course, that you're quite finished riling up mages, Alistair. Alistair shrugged apologetically. What can I say? The revered mother ambushed me. The way she wields guilt, they should stick her in the army. Alwyn chuckled as Duncan reprimanded Alistair. Looks like keeping my vow may be a bit more complicated than I thought. Alistair carried the unconscious, though very much alive, new warden to the tents to sleep off the joining sickness. After he got her settled, he stayed nearby and made a pot of coffee. It wouldn't alleviate the inevitable splitting headache she'd have when she woke, but it would help clear her mind at the very least. Alistair stirred the pot and reflected on the ritual. 2 more men had died, one from the taint, the other by Duncan's hand. In his joining, only one of the recruits had died, but it had still been horrible. He was glad at least one of this group had survived. Actually, as terrible as it sounded, if only one could have made it, he was thankful it had been her. After about an hour or so of keeping the brew warm and poking at the flames, his charge emerged from the tent. He smiled at her dazed expression knowingly. How are you feeling? Alwyn joined him at the fire. She was bleary-eyed and a bit woozy, but otherwise unscathed. Oh, fine, except for the fact that my head feels like it went a few rounds with a battering ram and lost. Alistair chuckled and handed her a cup of coffee. She smiled her thanks. Delightful, isn't it? Did you have dreams? I had terrible dreams after my joining. She sipped the drink gratefully. All I can remember are some grating, chattery voices and a very perturbed, very loud dragon. Is being a Grey Warden always this fun? Always this much fun? Alistair regarded her with mock seriousness. That's nothing. Just wait until the physical changes start. Scaly patches, unsightly knuckle hair, oozing pus, uncontrollable flatulence. Her eyes widened in horror. It was all Alistair could do to keep a straight face. Girl, you're joking, right? Please tell me you're joking. Teasing was always most potent just after the joining. He'd learned as much from his own experience 6 months prior. After his joining, a few of the other wardens had convinced him that rolling around in the snow and nothing but his small clothes would crystallize the taint in his blood, making his skin as hard as rock. A complete fabrication, and he had the bruises to prove it. At that moment, Duncan walked up to the fire. Ah, Alwyn, you're awake. Feeling better? As well as can be expected, thank you. Good, then I'm afraid I must pull you away. I'd like you to accompany me to a meeting with the king. Very well. Alwyn stood and began to follow Duncan. Just before she left the fire, she looked at Alistair with concern. You are joking, right? He smiled slyly. You'll see. Alistair grinned to himself as he watched her walk away. You know, he thought, one good thing about the Blight is how it brings people together. The end of the first episode. Bro, listen, girl. I'm not editing out all of my mistakes as I was reading that, okay? I'm keeping the full measure of cringe in this episode. We're just gonna cringe together. There were so many tropes, so many things, so many turns of phrase, and the way that I described certain actions, like he chuckled, she threw her head back in laughter, she doubled over, and like the description of the character, like, listen, full disclosure, like reading all of that has got me tripping over my words, bro. I also cringe because it was low-key, high-key, a little bit of a self-insert. Listen. Okay, we expected it. That's what we do with fan fiction. Don't judge me. If you love fan fiction, write fan fiction, or read fan fiction, you know that we write this fan fiction because somewhere in us, we want to be in that story, okay? So at the time, I did. All right, listen. I wouldn't say I wanted to be in the story, but listen, whatever. I'm not gonna say anything else. I will leave the rest of it up to your discretion. Thank you for joining me. Leave it up to your discretion. That didn't really make any sense. Listen, my brain is turning a little bit to mush after having read through all of that, which was 9 pages, stumbling over my words. Thank you for bearing with me. All right, you are a real one. All right, now we are best friends. And listen, I have a lot of other episodes, of the story. I would say anywhere from like 5 or 6, I think 5 or 6, maybe 7, probably like 5 or 6 more episodes of this story. And if you want to know kind of what I was thinking about where I was going to take this story, I will be happy to do like a podcast episode on that. If you want to hear more of this cringy fan fiction, let me know. Don't judge me, okay? I feel like my writing has grown since then. And listen, if you have written cringy fan fiction of your own, share it with us. If you would like me to read your cringy fan fiction on air so that we can commiserate together, we can be together in this, or if you would like to read your cringy fan fiction and send it to me and I will put it in an episode, let me know. Because we're all friends here. Let's build a community. Let's build a community of writers and lovers of story who know what it takes to get to where we want to go. Sometimes part of the process is writing fan fiction that makes us cringe years later. All right. With that being said, love you. All right. Have a great day. Eat some fruit. Drink some water. Get good sleep. All right. Take a nice long shower and breathe some fresh air. Go look at the sun, get some vitamin D. Okay? Have a great day.